Hey, how are you? Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, proudly on AFR Talk. We just got through with the show. Left a lot of stuff on the floor in the sense of clips I wanted to get to. But what's going on right now is just the more you learn, the more you realize that we're really in a bad way. And I would have a lot more patience if the media had done its job in the beginning with President Obama. I would have a lot more patience if we wouldn't continue to make victims of everybody else but while ignoring the real victims. And it hits me because I think to myself, the way we are presenting these arguments of, we're going to have to cut teachers. If we go through sequester, we're going to have to cut government actual cuts and then cuts in the rate of growth, even though we've seen certainly increases up to 60% over the years. And I think to myself about how people are qualifying for the programs of government that were meant for the people in dire need. And now we have people who are taking part in these programs who are above the poverty line by 130% and even much greater in certain circumstances. With the WIC program, half the children in America get their formula through that government program. Now, it's really, they've done a great job, haven't they? I mean, they've done a great job. I mean, if you're crafting a message, if I can just step out of it just for a second and have the time to do so, which is nice. They've done a really good job. Because when I just said that, it can be portrayed as that I want to cut funding to infants. And they're not going to get their formula because people like me want to cut that funding. And we want to do it while not asking the very wealthy or the people that produce the most, the people that have earned the most, the people that have made the most, to just pay a little more. And that makes me the bad guy. Because why would you do that? There's no compassion. You don't like kids. Number one, I just want to remind the people that say I don't like kids because I want to cut the program and cut funding. The people oftentimes making this statement don't recognize the kids in the womb. Now, some of you may find that to be unfair, and I believe it is unfair. It's terribly unfair for the child in the womb. Terribly unfair. And I say that as someone who years back carried a view toward being pro-life for myself, but pro-choice for everybody else. I'm not proud of that, but that's what happened. But it took somebody challenging me and saying, what do you mean? And then regarding life. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. Exact opposite. I'm trying to tell you the truth, which relates to the point, because you can't get around the fact that it's a baby, it's life. Science showing that even more now. You all who are on the other side of this issue, you like to say we're on the wrong side of history. Well, look in the mirror. You're on the wrong side of history. You're on the wrong side of science. And you just talk to the people that have been through the process. And as a disciple in progress, mentioning that is not blaming those people or trying to punish those people. It's in fact actually saying, looking up, going, God's grace, He's there for them. And I'm no more deserving of His grace than they are. I just want them to be healed and also to tell the truth about the procedure. I want people to tell the truth about what's going on with our government programs. I want people to tell the truth about people who take a risk and risk their their economic resources and the gains they've even made economically to do something greater, because God has blessed them with the gifts of providing a good or service through innovation or running a business that serves a need in our society. I like that. I look at those people and the men and women who've done that. And, wow, it's great. And now we have people who are saying, well, we've got this pot of money. It's called the taxes that we take in, and we also can print the money. So we take that, by the way, 46 cents of every dollar, and we're going to take that because we know better of what to do, and we don't have a spending problem. We have a misallocation problem, as Harkin made mention of. It is, yeah, Senator Tom Harkin made that statement. And I got to ask, who do you think you are? Taking the American people's money and saying you got to plug it in one place or another because you made promises that were going to get you reelected. And I say this to Republicans and Democrats. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Taking that jar of cash and reaching in and plugging it in to promises and programs that are unsustainable, that have grown beyond their original scope, that are administered most of the time by very good people doing the best job they can, but terrible in efficiency because they're not closest to the administration of that need and service. And the service is based on politics. Success is based on politics. Closest thing to eternal life is a government program. I also think that throughout this process, what's happened is we're losing what we are, who we are, what we've been. The American soldier has done more good for the world. Find me other people that have done that. And even if you disagree with a particular foreign policy of how have we made mistakes? Yeah. But if you're going to go that way, fine. They were mistakes. They're corrected. Yeah. We call them mistakes. Other countries call them policy. So stop playing the game of gotcha without context. We have soldiers in the field right now that are going to be returning home, and President Obama has claimed credit for ending wars. Well, wars don't end. They're either won or lost or fought to stalemates and ongoing, and you still have a struggle. We see that in Iraq. The brave men and women who served in Iraq, the administration was given an opportunity to solidify that gain in the front on the war on terror, the war on Islamofascism specifically. Let's call it out. And now we see an Iranian superstate starting to take shape. I said that was going to happen years ago. And it doesn't take a genius to understand that, because that's what happens. If we read history that's real, like This Time We Win by James S. Robbins, or Phil Jennings' book, Politically Incorrect Guide to the Vietnam War, and we talk about the Cold War of what it wasn't Gorbachev who ended the Cold War. It was Reagan who won the Cold War. And communism was real, and it was awful. It cut the soul out of the society. Yeah, and it was godless. So don't lie about our history. Don't talk about our arrogance in the fact that we talk about freedom and we remove threats before they can grow and become a smoking gun. Yeah, it's a tough decision, and yeah, we never rush into it, and yeah, it's not 1 to 10 when we talk about invading. Invading or doing nothing, it's just that's ridiculous. It's asinine. I mean, who does that? It's somebody who doesn't want to really present the true solutions, which is a comprehensive approach by advocating what we believe in. We're a great country, but government's right now growing to the point, and has grown to the point. And we have leaders going to a philosophy of violating the 10th commandment and going after what other people have and saying, we're going to divide up, and the pie is finite, except for the government resources, of course, which we don't earn. We can only take from one group to another. And if they really wanted to help people, they would realize and just look at economic history just for a moment and realize, just for that moment, that it's never worked. It's only made everybody else poorer without resources. You can't divorce economic liberty from personal liberty. And they claim to be helping us by giving us the first step to what will be a single payer system, which is Obamacare. Look at the controls on insurance. Do you think the government's done a particularly good job in healthcare? I'll never forget this conversation I had with somebody. I was a guest at a house, and the guy was talking about how great Medicare was and how it served everybody. And I thought about the funding, and I thought about how it was going bankrupt and how the structure of compensation could not hold up and would inevitably lead to waste, fraud, and abuse because it wasn't based on market conditions and forces and personal responsibility. But this person was just talking about how great it was. And I think what was great about it was he saw people being taken care of in a system, but we can all agree that's taken care of in the sense of people getting the help they need. But if it's in the least efficient way and it's causing, and it's grown way beyond what it can be, and it's a Ponzi scheme, and we can't, it just doesn't work, and only actually drives up costs, then we can say, yeah, we want people to get, it's great when people get help. It's great when people get health care, in essence. But we can do it in a much better way that doesn't cause destruction of our national treasury, our children's futures, and it doesn't create a system where we're going to have fewer and fewer doctors and more patients, and a iPad board comes in and tells us who gets what, and that's rationing, and that's death panels, and that's saying what you can get after a particular time. Because they start measuring, oh, how much life, is it worth it? You getting this hip replacement, doing whatever it may be. I cannot stress enough how corrupt the media is, and that's not me saying wah, that's me saying look at it. How on earth does a program grow 10 times beyond its scope and its projection when it comes to the projection of what it would cost, and that we are not taking immediate and strong action to reform the program, and if we look at the cause of it, perhaps end the program and have it administered in a different way to go about solving the problem. If it's exacerbating a problem, why would you not try to fix it? We are arguing about sequester and the discretionary cuts, and we are $16 trillion in debt. We're running $1 trillion plus deficits every year. And the place proportionally that's taking the hit is the one place where our government is supposed to be, and that's defending us. Yet they play politics with our soldiers and our national defense, and they play politics with the programs thinking, well, we'll get this together and they'll have to cave, and then we'll have to tap into the people that are producing more. But what we find is over time, we all produce less after that. That means less jobs, less growth, less revenue into the treasury. And so the message now comes, we need more taxpayers. That's a hard one to sell, isn't it? Because if you're not paying taxes right now, and you look at 50%, 53%, it's anywhere 47, 53% federal income tax. You say people are not paying, and you say we want to make you taxpayers. That's not. They're not going, oh, hey, that's great, because they have a thing called self-interest, as we all do. I'm not faulting them. I'm just saying that's a reality. Progressive taxation will inevitably lead to division and manipulation and destruction, and it has. And that's what we're seeing now. President Obama is only using the tools that are laid out before him and on the field. And Yeah. Do I disagree with him? And do I think he presents straw man arguments oftentimes? Yeah. But he's using what was in place. And parties have used this because if they really wanted a fair tax system, they wouldn't increase the amount they take as you earn more, because there's nothing fair about that. And you sit back, well, the money needs to come from that. Well, then it should be equally applied proportionally in the sense that we're all paying for it. Again, little changes, we're beyond that. We need structural change, and the answer is freedom. And it's just driving me to a place where I sit back and I think of all of us who are doing, and all of you who are doing your jobs, and you're being salt and light to the world, and you're telling the truth, and you're characterized as haters. And I know the world's not going to like us. I get it, but it still doesn't make it right. And it still doesn't make it a place where I got to accept that and say, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to point it out. When somebody's demonized as some kind of McCarthyite because they ask questions about the next Secretary of Defense who was completely unprepared and didn't even know the policies that he would be implementing. Plus has a history of making statements, and now there's vocal support for him from enemy regimes. I mean, come on. So the reason Ted Cruz, and quite frankly, in government, I appreciate respect, but I don't think we sit there and say, you're a friend of mine, so I can't tell the truth to the American people. I have a personal relationship with you, so I can't do my job, because first and foremost, your job is not to protect your friend or to have politeness supersede accountability. The first job is to us, the American people, and protecting us and putting the very best person in that position. And yes, there is a leeway, certainly the president choosing their administration and how they choose to fill those spots. But then at least we can expose all of it. And if we believe that this person who's being put into a particular position, doesn't matter, DR, doesn't matter, is going to do a job that, or move on a policy, or has been advocating a policy that is antithetical to what his job is outlining, being Secretary of Defense and defending the United States of America, well, then I think you got to say, hey, I don't think this person's qualified. Because of many reasons, but that's the choice for those senators to make. I bring on guests who care about this stuff. I mean, Chris Horner, for example. Reason he's explaining this is because he outlined it. And we have friends who have done this, outlined it. Green Hell is another book by Steve Malloy. I just want to give you the resources, not because, oh, you can give it. No, I want you to be aware. Because somehow we have a belief system that climate change, which was man-made global warming, is now going to be front and center and go after implementing a policy that takes hold of the means of production, our energy policy. And we're paying, and we keep paying more and more. And we don't change our behavior of accessing the resources we have and recognizing that we can have the resources of fossil fuel while not. Incidentally, the programs that they want to put in place do nothing to solve the problem, have little to no impact on the problem. And they admit that, but they just want to do something which restricts our ability to use the resources we have. We've been given dominion. This is a lot, I know. And it's probably because I've been writing my State of the Union for the last, since the State of the Union. Well, my point is, I'll talk more about that then. Appreciate you listening. Please understand my heart is not to tear down, but is to expose and tell the truth. Please understand that I am a believer in freedom. But if you don't, that's okay too. Please understand that people who believe like me, I believe the Bible is true. And now I'm a flat earther. Well, so be it. Yes, incidentally, I realize there's sin. This always comes up. I realize there are other sins. Why am I concentrating on homosexuality? Because the homosexual movement is trying to change the definition of marriage, which, as we know, will end marriage as we know it. Because you can't change the definition and maintain it. The other part to that is, I don't see people walking up and down the street going, premarital relations, keep going. Out of wedlock birth, keep going. But I do see it with the homosexual movement. And I don't hate anybody or think I'm better than anybody who happens to be that. I don't even like talking about it. Because it's such a very small percentage of society, which has become a very vocal, and they're claiming civil rights, and they're taking a civil rights movement that is extraordinary to be equal under the law, and they're applying, and they're saying race is behavior, and it's not. And it's not right to do to that movement. It's not right what we've seen out of the civil rights movement, because what we've seen is the hijacking of it from people that are doing the exact thing that the civil rights movement said they did not want. In essence, judging people by the content or the color of their skin, not the content of their character. And throwing very loose charges around about racism. The other point is, and just to end on a high note, there is so much right with America. But Benjamin Carson, Dr. Benjamin Carson, I mean, you think about what he had to say about those. Remember what he told the story about the birds? This guy goes out and he purchases these two extraordinary birds. They can talk, they can do anything, they can knit, they can do anything. He sends them back home to his mom. Well, his mom says, hey, how are the birds doing? How are the birds? Oh, they tasted great. And he says, well, they could speak, they could play instruments, they could do anything. Why did you just eat them? I mean, that weren't really fun. They should have spoken up. I love that. Benjamin Carson, bravo, my friend. We got to speak up. Speak truth and love, but speak truth. Thank you for taking the time. Many of you will probably see this in the recorded form, which I will post as soon as possible. Thank you for listening to Nothing But Truth and nothingbuttruth.com. More's coming, by the way, through the website, and really, really, it's going to be intense in a good way. Live with honor in your life, compassion in your heart. Always keep the faith. Know that God knows you. He created you. He loves you. He has a plan for you. And you're worth it. Thanks.